a common concern with our teachers working with BMLs in the classroom is, how do you get them to talk? How do you get them to
Oh yeah.
engage, and how do you get them to participate? It
Yeah.
seems like it's really impossible to do that. So I know that it's not easy. There's no magic switch you can turn on that will make them start talking on demand. So what do
Yeah, I
you
think,
recommend?
well, I think what we need to what you need to know really is that there's two separate issues here.
Yeah.
The first one is cultural, and the second one is age.
Okay.
So, with the cultural aspect, I think that the role of teacher to student in other cultures is very different. Those expectations, the
Very
traditions,
different to the Western
it's
perspective you're
very
talking
different
about.
to the Western
Yes.
philosophy, the way that we have expectations. So we as Western teachers expect our students to give us good eye contact. We
Right.
expect them to challenge us, to question, to answer back, to be active participants within
Yeah,
the
to
learning.
almost constructivist approach to
Yeah,
create the
exactly.
learning
In
as they
fact, the
go.
lesson's built on that, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if otherwise it's like dead, you're talking to this dead ear, and it's very uncomfortable for a lot of us teachers. Whereas
in our culture,
in
yeah.
in certain cultures, that the role of the teacher is very explicit and clear,
Yeah,
and the role of the student, and it's
and very
different. And that's
different.
not to
Yeah.
say that our way is better or their way is better.
Yeah.
They're very different, and they both have their right ways for
And
their culture.
they reflect the culture, right? Exactly.
Exactly. So I think we have to understand that when we have certain students from certain cultures coming into our Western education
Yeah.
um, programs, that there's going to be a bit of a clash there for
Yeah.
those students.
I'm just thinking right now of, what we ask our students. We'll say, go ask three before you ask me. I mean, we
Oh
even ask
yeah,
them, go ask other students. Don't
don't
even
ask
ask
me.
me first.
Don't come
Whereas,
to me first. Go and ask three people before you come to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
That's right.
So that could be very difficult, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
trained up to understand that the teacher is actually the one who gives the knowledge and the students are absorbing and, note taking and that kind of thing, that can be almost a cultural clash.
Yeah, I remember talking to a teacher who was a Korean teacher, and she was American, and she taught in South
Yeah.
Korea. And it was a kindergarten class. And at the very beginning, she was, training her children up to,
Hmm.
go around the room and do their activities and be a little bit more independent in their what they had to
Yeah,
do in their circle times and things like this. And a lot of them wouldn't give her eye contact at the beginning, of course, because in that culture, that's a sign of respect, not to give
exactly.
direct eye contact. And so she was saying, talk to me, look at me when I'm talking to you, because I want you to look at me in the eye so that I know that you understand and I'm clear. And eventually, over time, the kindergartners did do that. I mean, they
Yeah, after a couple of
realized,
months. Yeah.
yeah, a couple of months, maybe 6 months. And then, what interestingly, they had a parent evening
Hmm.
or an open house, and the parents came to see what their babies were up to in the classroom in the learning, to see them functioning in English, and they were all very proud and chuffed. But they were also very horrified because what they saw from their cultural perspective was their children being disrespectful to this teacher. They
Yeah.
were talking back to the
Shouting out.
teacher, they were challenging the teacher. As the teacher was talking to one set of children, another set were off doing their own thing, and
Yeah.
they found that quite difficult. And I think that's also to change parents' mindsets, that when they put children into
Yeah.
these types of schools, they're not just teaching them English or to function
Yes.
and be educated in English, but they're enculturating them
The other
into
culture. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And
And
I think that's something a lot of parents aren't necessarily aware of. They're thinking mostly only of the language, right? That I want my
exactly,
child to learn this language. So, from a child's
exactly.
perspective, though, we have to help them see that, you know, there's two ways of doing things. One is not better. And this way you do, you follow this approach. And in this culture, you follow that approach. So
But
it's
that
more
takes
like a
time.
code switching as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that takes time. And I think the second issue is age.
Yeah.
And what really happens there is, if you have older students, and I think this
Yeah.
is more common in the high school, for example, where you have older students who have been more enculturated into their previous
Their
system.
systems. Yeah.
And so they're very used to that. And then they come to our Western schools, and inevitably then they're going to be new to English. So they're going to be beginners, right? So they don't have such a sophisticated level of English to the level that their peers would have within the
Right.
classroom. And so they're going to be intimidated, first of all,
Yes.
to express themselves, because
Mhm.
again, in a lot of cultures, they don't want to lose face.
Yeah.
So with our older students,
It's
they're
understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, they're intimidated. They don't have enough practice.
Even just being a teenager in general, whatever
Exactly, just
culture
with
you're
the
coming from.
peers, and
Yes,
another boy or girl sitting and watching you that you perhaps like. All of that dynamics is going on in the classroom. So
right.
I think that that can be very challenging,
It
those two
adds
things.
it certainly adds a different dimension on top of it, right?
Yeah, and I think we have to put things in place,
Hmm.
and this is the how would you help the students
Yeah.
to speak. I think we have to create a lot more opportunities
Yes.
where this can happen within the classroom. I think what happens within certain curriculums is that there isn't enough time in the curriculum for discussion,
Yeah.
for talking. And with your BMLs, you need to put that in there
Make time.
more. You have to
Yeah.
make it, double it,
Yeah.
triple it. First of all, you want them to be able to use that academic language all the time so that they're
Yeah.
comfortable using it and they can express themselves with it. They hear it all the time and it's repeated again and again.
But
But
you
not
can't really do that unless you're planning for that to happen.
That's
So
right.
I
And
think
give them two or
maybe,
three times more than is actually put into the curriculum.
yeah,
Into
and I'm
the
just
classroom.
thinking right now, if you get a student who is completely new, who's, going to take time, you have to work with that. So, you have to
Yeah,
accept what the student is able to give you. So if they can give you
exactly.
a one word sentence or
Answer.
a reply or a two word, you accept that. And I
Yeah,
think you don't want to make it an experience where you have to correct them all the time. That's really going to silence them even more in many cases. So what you want to do is build that up slowly, build their comfort level up. Also work with a partner, perhaps if the student can talk to someone in their mother tongue or their home language. That's in the classroom. Get use that as a
perfect.
bridge and help them to express themselves comfortably. And then as they grow in their English, they can be translating back and forth
Yeah,
bit
and if
by
they have a
bit.
buddy, like say for example, you have a child who
Yeah,
has a mother tongue that or first language that there isn't another person in the classroom,
yeah,
then buddy them up with someone who's kind,
yeah,
whom you know is an open child who will or student who
yeah.
is accepting and will be patient and obviously this will have to happen in English,
Yeah.
and then that builds up the trust
Yes.
and the safe space and
Hmm.
a safe environment within that little bit of a table where they then can put the answer together and they can be helped to do
Yeah,
that and
partner
then
work and get
partner
them.
work.
And I would repeat that over and over until that
Yeah,
student develops kind of a comfort level. And then add, a third person into the group and build that up. So it's something you want to grow over time, and that the
yeah,
student can feel, that their trust is growing as well as their comfort level. So I think that is really key to all of this. It's not something that happens on demand. It takes time. So we would recommend just start with some of these small steps and, help your student feel comfortable. And over time, you will see the progress, definitely.
yeah.
All right. So those are a few quick tips we hope you can try out in your classrooms.